basically what we're going to cover today is these two topics, the bonds and the CCS calculators. Now sorry, my scroll is a bit sensitive. There we go. We do get a few questions around how do we record bonds in Owner? So I just wanted to create a training today to sort of go through that process with you. And depending if you're just doing CCS or you're also doing, using the merchant and actually charging your families through Owner, the different process and steps that are involved, okay? So essentially the way it works is we're going to go through recording and returning bonds. We're going to go through an actual report you can generate to see what bonds you have entered in a period of time, how we actually add those to the transactions if we're going to be using it for invoicing purposes, and also if we're going to be charging the bonds, how can we charge a bond individually? So if we collect a $200 bond, how can we just charge $200? Or how can we actually create it as part of an invoice? So the $200 plus the fees will be their first invoice. Okay, I'll show you the different methods. And also at the end of the period, some services don't actually return the full bond. They allow the parents to use their bond to offset their fees, their last 2 weeks or their whatever the case may be. So I'll show you how you can actually transfer part or all of the bond onto that. And then in the second half of the training, we'll go through the CCS calculator. We've upgraded it. So I just want to show you guys how we're going to use it from now on, how you can do some scenario planning. Parents have dropped days, picked up days. You want to see the different session of care. If I change, if you only have one session in your center and you're contemplating doing a 10-hour session, what that would look like for a particular family. Okay, so showing that off, and then also showing you how we print and save those quotations. Okay. Awesome. So let's get into it, guys. I don't know if this Facebook thing is working. I apologize again if I didn't get the Facebook thing right. My colleague was like, you have to press the button to make it live. And it says live here, but I just don't know if it's actually on. So yeah, essentially, I apologize if I didn't get it right. I will get it eventually. But this is recorded anyway, so it will appear on our YouTube channel. Awesome. Okay, so let's get into it. So first things first. Now, this is going to be a step that every center will need to, implement, regardless if you're going to be using Owner as your billing platform as well, or if you're just going to be using it for the CCS component. As long as you're recording your family accounts and all of that through Owner, just follow these steps. So you've created your accounts and you have the account name here and obviously the carers, guardians and their balances. And you've also got this column here, which is bond. Okay, so we can actually record a bond. And the most important thing to note about this step I'm going to show you is it's just for record keeping purposes. And we do have a note on that as well. It doesn't actually change the balances of any family accounts or whatever. It's just so if you've collected a bond outside of Owner, or you will or have collected a bond within Owner, it's just for you to keep a track record of where that family's bond balance is at a particular point in time. Okay, so I can clearly see here the Burgess family has $171. If I scroll down this list, I can see Gray has 300, and it's just about keeping that record. Okay, it's very easy to do. All you have to do is just click on the account name. Okay, now we've made it nice and easy by breaking up certain sections into tabs, and you'll see the tab here called bond. Okay, just click the bond tab. And then it's as simple as putting in the information. So what was I in? The Gray family, was I? No, Adam's family have paid me actually a $450 bond. And obviously you guys would know the value of your bond might be, 2 weeks worth of fees, or it might be a set amount or whatever the case may be. So you just enter the bond that's applicable for your service and that particular family. You can put a date that the bond was taken. So let's say we're doing it today, which is the 13th of May. Which is this Thursday here, but I've actually collected it last Monday. I've just been a bit slammed with work, so I haven't been able to record it. I can actually backdate that date there as well, okay? And then I can just record, if I want to put any comments, so for example, 2 weeks, bond, I don't know, 3 days or something, I don't know, whatever kind of comments you guys want to put, you can put that there. And you just click this record bond taken button, which is green. And just like I said before, I just want to point out this note here. This does not credit or debit the family's banking or credit accounts, okay? So it's literally just for record keeping purposes. It's just for you to be aware of where each of your family's bond balances are at a particular point in time. So I've added in my $450, okay? And then you'll be able to see that on the family account screen right here under bonds, okay? I will show you in a second how we can export these, run reports, filter them and whatnot. But what I just want to show you is So I've showed you how to take a bond. Now it's very straightforward, but just in case anyone's unclear for whatever reason, to return the bond, same thing. Now let's say I'm only going to return part of that bond, let's say 250, so we keep that balance at 200. Okay. First thing first is you'll see that when we recorded the bond, it's here, $450, as well as the I don't know, can I zoom? No, I can't zoom, sorry. As well as the comment that I made. Okay. And now let's say, for example, I'm going to return 250 because maybe there's 2 children's worth of bond. Okay. And 1 child has finished up. I can write, what was that? Okay, I can just write here, child A, finished care, or something like that, right? Whatever the case may be, just to show the whole family paid a 450 bond at a particular point in time, and then I've actually returned 250 of it already, and the child has finished care. Okay, so I've still got a $200 bond balance, and you can clearly see that up here. Okay, for that particular family, obviously it's just adding and minusing, bonds taken minus bonds returned to give you the balance. And then obviously you can see that here on the family account screen, if I refresh my accounts, I'll be able to see that updated transaction there. Okay, so that should be pretty straightforward stuff. But in case anyone wasn't aware, that's how you do it. Okay, now let's get to the more sort of fun stuff that people may not know about bonds. So you've recorded all your bonds. You've got a nice little, family account list with all your bonds on the right hand side. One cool thing you can do is actually order them. So first of all, just a sidetrack, you can also order by balance, the same way we're going to do bonds. And I can click plus, for example. And what that's going to show me is that's going to show me the largest bond that I have at this particular point in time. Okay, so for example, this Lopez family has a $500 bond, so they came out on top. I can also see who has the smallest bond if I wanted to. So anyone with 0, and then therefore $22 and so forth. Okay, so that's one really cool thing you can do. Now, why you might want to do that, I'm not too 100% sure. There might be a reason, but we do have that there. And the other thing I wanted to let you guys know is if that is something that obviously appeals to you, you can actually then export this data as well. So depending how you want the export to look, obviously you can filter it by account names like we normally do. The default sort by will filter it alphabetically by the account name, by balance, by bond, whatever the case may be. And then you can actually scroll down to the bottom of your family accounts list and you'll have this export button here as well. Okay. Now, one thing to note is you can export the data as of a particular point in time. Okay. And if you ever use this as of date, just remember to always use the following day. So if I want to know the balances and bonds and everything as of the 31st of May, let's go back to this year. So 30th of what was before? So I've lost my April. Yeah, good work, Peter. So 30th of April. What I would do is I would just run the report for the first, okay? Because the closing balance of one day is the opening of the other. So what we've done is we basically go by the day after, and it shows us the closing balance of every period before that date, okay? So I choose the first, for example, and I can export that. If you just want to export the data that is right here in front of you right now, just click the export button and don't put in a date, just delete the date, export that data, and it comes into Excel, and you'll be able to see those columns there as well, okay? Awesome. Does anyone have any questions on that? It is something that we do get asked a lot, so from time to time. So I do just wanted to go over it. I know some of it might be straightforward, so I do apologize for anyone that already knows this information. I just wanted to come out with this training to sort of help you guys out. Let's see here, bond report. Okay, let's do the bond report next. If you guys have questions, again, just chuck them in the chat and I will get to them. Okay. Moving on from there, so we've got our family accounts. Now, you might have had a period of time, especially when you're first starting up or coming into owner or whatever the case may be, you might have had increased fees and you're getting more bonds from your families or whatnot. So one thing you can do is you can actually run a bond report. So off the family account screen, we have a quick link at the top here called bonds. You can actually click that bonds button and it will bring you to what we call the bond report, okay? Now you can run this report from any period of time, okay? And oh yes, of course. And then because I don't have any information, what I'll show you is a photo. And when you do that, what's going to happen is when you run your period, so in this case, I've done it from the 4th of January to the 13th of May. So I just wanted to see pretty much everyone this year that's given me a bond or any bond transactions that have happened, okay? keep in mind you should always be recording them as I showed you earlier, so that they appear on this report here. Okay. One more note just before I get into the ins and outs of it is that this bond report is picking up any changes to this bond section here, not on the family account screen and transaction screen, which I'll show you in a moment. Okay. So basically we'll show you, like, how before I added 450. So I'll show you the 450, and then we remove 250 as well. It'll show you all those individual transactions. So you can see from a bond perspective what your total bond balance is for all your families for a given period of time. Okay. So yeah, I just wanted to point that stuff out for you guys. And it also shows you the date. It will show you the account name. Okay, I blacked it out obviously because it's confidential data, and also the comment. So all of that information that I put before for the Adams family will appear here. The comment when I said, 2 weeks bond for 3 days or whatever I said, and then returning child A's bond, all of that comment will come here as well. So you clearly see what each of these line items is relating to, and you'll be able to see when it happened. And I believe, don't quote me if I'm not right. If it's not done, I think it's something that's in the works. I believe we can export that as well. What have I done? I've clicked out of it. Because I can't run the report, I can't confirm. But yeah, if you can't export it again, you can just copy the paste into Excel. But I think it is something that someone has mentioned, so it's something that's on the development team's mind. Okay, but yeah, basically you'll be able to extract that data as well if you needed to. Awesome. I'm hoping that's nice and clear for everyone. Bonds generally is a pretty straightforward topic, but just in case anyone had any sort of, what do you call it, questions, feel free to ask them in the chat. Okay, now let's add some bonds to the transaction. So this is for anyone that wants to actually show bonds on their invoices, and then therefore get the parents to collect that bond from an invoice you're generating either in Owner, or you're going to bill them through Owner as well. Okay. The way you do it is you do it on the family transaction screen. Okay. So you go to the family transaction for that particular family, let's say in this particular case, Adams. Okay. Now, like I said before, you have to do the first step. Now, the order is not relevant. Doesn't matter which one you do first, second, or third, because they don't link up. Just make sure you do it, basically. You want to add it to the family account screen so you have that record keeping purposes, but you also would want to keep it added to the family transaction screen so that charge is applied, okay? Now, one thing that that we want to make clear here on the bonds, and it's very important, is the same way that fees have an actual charge and then a CCS payment, for example, and then a credit, and these credits offset that charge, a bond needs that same methodology. So we need to add in a charge called, bond fee, okay? So for example, I will add, oops, I clicked the wrong button, didn't I? Yep, I think I did. So I go into the family account name, and so my Zoom controls, yep, are hiding my button. Okay, so, and I click this add transaction button here. I don't know if you can see it right there on the right-hand side. Make sure you've selected your family first, get transaction, and then you add the transaction, okay? First thing you want to do is you want to add a debit. So just before we do that, let's see something. So the current balance of this family is $1,786. Now, let's say I want to add a $200 bond. We know that the balance should be 1986, okay? So to do that, we add the debit, we add the amount $200. I'll put it in as today, so I'll leave the date, and I'll just put bond charge. Now, with this description, it's also clear to make sure, it's also important to make it very clear and transparent what the charge is for, and also to show that it's a charge or fee or whatever wording you want to use, because if you take a payment from a bond as well, you also get to put in the description. So it's clear to show that one's a charge and one's the payment, okay? And you'll see that evidently in a second. But basically, you want to actually show that $200 is the bond fee or bond charge, whatever you want to call it, and that's clearly added to the statement. Oh, here, yep. Okay, and then therefore the balance is 1986. And then what happens is, which I'll show you in a second, once we take this payment as a credit of $200, the balance will go back to 1786, and the actual balance of the account won't be affected, but the bond will be recorded on the statement. Okay, so two ways we can record the payment of the bond, I guess, if you're putting it on the statement. Number one is if it's outside of Owner, you have to add the transaction in as well, okay? Now, if it's all done outside of Owner, you don't necessarily need to put it on the statement because you do have it on the family account screen. But for some people, they might want to, so parents can clearly see it as well. So you just put in a credit of $200. They paid it by, let's say, direct deposit or something, and you can write bond payment, okay? Now, I'll show you how important it is to get these right in terms of adding it, the debit correctly and the credit correctly, and also the description. See how clear it is right now that this was the fee for $200, this was the bond payment, a credit of $200, and therefore that's the balance. This makes it nice and easy for the parent to follow along as well, okay? So they can clearly see this is what the amount was, this is what the payment was, I understand it all, fantastic, okay? And now I have a $200 bond balance, okay? So they can see that as well. Another way you can take a payment as well, so if you're not doing it, if you're doing it within owner, there are two ways we can take the payment, okay? The first one is right here on the statement. Sorry, I'm so used to scrolling up. The take payment button is also on the left. You click this take payment button, okay? So essentially on the right is a blue button, which is add transaction. That's how you add the transaction on the statement. On the left is a green button, which is take payment. And this is how we actually physically charge that parent's account, okay? Now, we need to make sure that the parent has already filled out a DDR form or we already have account details for that family. But essentially what happens is once you have a family here, you can actually take a payment from this account right here, put in the amount, for example, $200, put in the description, and it's exactly like what we did with the take, with the add credit. Obviously, I don't have payment information, so I can't proceed with this one, but you would just do the same thing, bond payment, or you can put a more elaborate description if you want, just to show that, but just show that it's a payment, right? You might write bond payment for 2 weeks, whatever the case may be, but make sure that it's clear that it's a payment. And then here you'll have like a little payment via direct debit if they're using direct debit, or payment via credit card if they're using credit cards, okay? So you'll be able to click that button, and what it will do is it will charge the family their actual, bank details or credit card details, and it will apply this credit here on the account, okay? Obviously, the same way every other direct debit goes, it'll say processing, and it has to go through the channels, but that's how you would take a payment of that bond as a separate sort of charge to their attendances, okay? Now, that's one way you can take the payment, okay? The other way you can do it is just leave it on the account. So for example, we wouldn't have this credit. We would just have this charge of $200. We would also then, generally the bond comes first, then the attendances. So it's a little bit backwards in this scenario that I'm showing you here. But essentially you'll have the $200 bond, you'll have some attendances come in as well. And what you'll do is you'll generate your invoice. And when you generate invoices, I don't think, we have talked about this in other tutorials as well, so I'm not going to go too much into it. But essentially, while this decides to not load, what's going to happen is, maybe if I go back, the $200 bond balance will come in as a carryover, okay, plus their fee for that particular period of time equals their amount that they owe. So let's say, for example, the gap that they were meant to pay us is $200. They also have a $200 bond. They will then be charged $400 on their first invoice, okay? So there are different ways to record bonds depending on the service sort of policies, as well as how what level of owner you're using. Are you just doing CCS with owner? Are you also creating your family accounts? Are you billing your families in owner? So depending on what level you guys are on, because I can see different people on this training at the moment, depending on what level you guys are on, feel free to use any of those sort of methods I've showed you to sort of help with recording bonds. Is that all clear for everyone? Linda, good question. So basically, Linda's asking if we can charge bond admin excursion fees from a predetermined fee list. At the moment, no, but it is a pretty good, suggestion. So what I would say with that is, as per usual, just go in and chuck it in as a feature request if you haven't already. And we'll get the team to see if they can do something about that, because, if you're obviously adding, excursion fees and whatnot, they might be able to do it, but it is as simple as just putting in the amount. And it's one of those things where I will say it depends, because it depends if they're going to add it or not. Because see, the thing is with bonds, it's so unique to every single center. Some centers charge one flat fee for the bond, whereas other centers are charging 2 weeks advance what do you call it, fees. And every single family within that center has a different fee structure and a different fee amount. So every bond, even within that one center, is different. So I'm not sure if the where the development side of things will go with that, but like I said, put it as a feature request and we can pass it to the team and see what they can do with it, if anything. Okay, but yeah, good question. Anyone else have any questions on that sort of stuff, bonds and whatnot? Just gonna go back to my slides, see if I forgot anything. Oh, I forgot one thing. Okay, transferring bonds. Okay. Feel free to ask questions, but basically, let's say now it's the end of the period. So we recorded. So in our particular example, we had the Adams account. Okay, going back in case anyone missed it, we put in a $450 bond that was collected, okay, by record bond taken, and we took away $250 because the child actually finished care. Let's say we wanted to apply this $250 bond on the actual family's statement to reduce their fees. So they're using their bond to offset their fees. You would just do the same thing that we did originally. So basically all you're going to do is just add a credit, okay? So you'll add a credit onto the statement by add transaction, add credit, and then in this case, I think it was 250, okay? And you can just say maybe other, and we'll just write bond used to pay off fees. Now, hopefully your families pay you a lot more frequently than ours do here, but hopefully this $250 or whatever their bond amount is should help at least offset their fees to zero or reduce it close enough so when you create a closing invoice or their final invoice, they should have a small amount to pay. Okay, so you can also do that. Okay, so you would put in the credit here on the account, and that will offset the actual balance of the account, making sure, like I said before, you still record the bond here to show that it's actually been reduced from the family's bond balance. So if it's just a one family, 450 in, 450 out, the bond balance will become zero. And then that 450 will be applied onto the account. Okay, so that's how you can actually transfer your bond fees as well. Does anyone have any questions? And while I wait for questions before we get to CCS Calculator stuff, I want to show you guys something cool. I think this might be the old, yeah, this is the old one. Let's go to the new one. So in our tutorial guides, okay, you'll be able to see a section here pretty much on everything we talked about under accounts. Okay, click on the accounts icon and you'll see everything about the bonds. Okay, so how to record a bond, take it and return it. That's what we did at the beginning. How to take the payment of the bond. So we did that off the family transaction screen. And then we just did now how to transfer a bond. Okay, so that's all there for you to utilize. And each sort of, what do you call these? Like guides have a little bit more information, for you to follow down, and then, where to next, they link up and whatnot. Okay, so just want to point anyone out who may have either missed the training or want to see a little bit more information or whatnot. You can see that all here as well. Okay. Oh, this is great. I didn't know we had this actually. So remember how we were talking about before that we could pass on the bond onto the actual invoices. So I think we've actually got a demonstration here. So balance account, general invoice. Yeah. See, so what we were saying before is the bond will come over as a carryover amount. Okay. So you'll be able to see that clearly there. In this case, we collected a $900 bond. Okay. So I'm just going to move that there so you can see that here. Oops, okay, I can't highlight, but you can see that here, $900 as a carryover, and then that's obviously been applied to the $600 fee. Therefore, $1,500 is applicable for this family's payment, I guess. Okay, awesome. So yeah, basically go through these guides because we do explain this sort of stuff a lot, and like more, I guess, step-by-step instructions as well. Yeah, this was a credit on the account. Yeah, perfect. Okay. There you go. Using bond amount $1,000 to cover fees. We'll give you some ideas on how you can write that description. And you can see how clear that is for the family to understand. Oh, okay, that's what that credit is. Yep, cool, I understand it. So basically follow these guides and it will help you out with anything you need from a bond perspective. Does the description that you enter in the charge show up on the invoice? Linda, no. The invoice, when it has a carryover balance, it's all grouped and it just says carryover balance. However, because parents have access to their statements and invoices on their actual statement, which is what we call, the family transaction screen, they'll clearly see that description there. Okay, they'll also see any charge or any, take payment or credit or anything like that. They'll see that in their statement, but not in their invoice. But yes, good question. Awesome. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this because I wasn't sure like how long this training would be or how, redundant, I guess, the information would have been, but it looks like everyone's, sort of gaining some knowledge. So I'm really, really happy for that. So awesome. If you guys have any more questions on bonds, do chuck them in the comment, but in the chat box. But let's keep going. We're going to talk about the CCS calculator now. Okay, so when we talk about the CCS calculator, I want to show you guys the new design. Now, like I said before, we did do a training earlier this week about our new features, and it was mentioned. I was actually aware that we're doing that, so apologies if it's double information. But you can never get and you can never have too much of a good thing. So let's just show you guys how our new CCS calculator works and how it can help yourself, your families, some scenario planning and whatnot. So the really cool thing about this calculator is it's all now done in like real time, I guess. So as you change information, you're going to see all the changes. So basically, we go to CCS subsidy calculator, and I believe if we haven't already done so, I believe we're going to give this link available for even like centers that haven't signed up to CCS yet. They'll still have access to this calculator. So it's not just going to be locked to only the people that have signed up to CCS. Okay, keeping in mind signing up to the owner CCS is free, so it really makes no financial difference. You just sign up and you have access to it, even if you don't use it. But yeah, I think with the CCS calculator, we will make that available. Okay, and so the calculator, the way it works, if anyone hasn't, if you haven't had a chance to play around with it yet, is essentially you just enter the details for that particular family, their rate, their withholding, their hours, and what their cap is, and we start putting in the information from a fee perspective and how many hours they attend. And this bottom section here just starts to calculate automatically as we enter information, and it starts to show us the total fortnightly hours, the fees, the CCS estimate, what the gap will be, the subsidized hours, and if we are over or under our hours, it will show us how many hours we have not used or how many hours we've gone over. Okay, so let's say, for example, we're at a 56% CCS rate, withholding 5% as per the standard, and we have, let's do something to show you guys. Let's say we only have 60 hours, okay? But the family still wants to attend 5 days, let's say, and they want to know what their gap will be. The next thing we want to determine is, are they non-school aged or school aged? So if they're an OSH/USH center, do the 1067. If they're not, it's 1220. Okay. And then basically what you'll do is put in how many hours that family is attending per day. So let's say you've decided because they're on 60 hours, we're going to give them a 9-hour session. Okay. They want to attend, I can even do 4 days. Let's say we do 4 days. Okay. We've decided that that's the minimum amount of days that they need to attend. You can put that in. The fee for the center in my fictitious example will be $120, let's say. Okay. And what it's doing in the background is it's actually calculating, as I type in all that information, all of this stuff at the bottom here. Okay. So I'm going to keep going because this family is doing 4 days a week. Okay. And you can clearly see many different things that were populated as I was typing that information out. Okay. Now, just to clarify, you just need to fill out the top information, the CCS percentage, withholding, entitlements, which if the child's in the system already, you see under entitlements anyway, and the cap, sorry. And then also just fill out the hours per day if it's the week 1 of the fortnight or week 2 of the fortnight, and what the fee is per day. You can mix and match. You can have 10 hours here and 11 hours here, whatever. Okay. But obviously, we're just trying to do a standard 9-hour sort of example. So we can see here that we've got 36 hours and another 36 hours. So we have a total fortnightly hours of 72. We're only entitled to 60. So this family is going to go over their hours by 12. Okay, so we can see the unsubsidized hours that we have are 12. Okay, if we have less, by the way, it will have a negative. So I've only used 54 hours, but I'm entitled to 60. So I still have 6 unused hours. Okay, it'll come up as a negative. Okay, we just wanted to point that out. But the really cool thing is a few things, okay? So we can see the total amount of hours for this 1 week, the total amount of hours for this other week separately. Keep in mind, if you have, different days, you might have some children that do 3 days and then 4 days. You can see the differences between each week, okay? This is what I mean by scenario planning. It's so easy to just change the information and see how it affects things. You can see how it affects the gap, the CCS estimate and whatnot. So let's say, for example, you're doing 12-hour sessions and you want to drop them down to 10, you can easily see that, okay? And in a second, I'll show you how you can save information as well. So you can print out the 12-hour quote, the 12-hour sessions per day quote compared to the 10-hour sessions per day quote and see what the difference in the gap is or the CCS and whatnot. So it's really interactive, okay? So you basically fill out all that information and you'll see a lot of different things. You'll see the fees for that week and then the other week as well, calculated together. It's automatically calculating the CCS and the gap for you, so you don't have to do that, but you can clearly see the difference. You can actually see, so in the first week, because we have all of our hours still, the CCS is 233, but in the second week, it's only 155, okay? Adding that all up together in the fortnight will give me 389, but it's not a breakdown of half. You don't just split that number into two because you actually have more this week and less that week. What that's going to mean is the gap is going to be less in the first week because more is covered by CCS, and it's going to be high in the second week. So you'll have one of those situations where the family has a different amount on their invoice each week, and one will be higher, one will be lower because of them running out of hours, okay? So you can clearly see how nice and easy and slick it is to sort of update all that information. Let's say you have a fee change and you want to sort of, relay that information. Again, you just go put that in and see how that affects your family. So I'll show you guys how to save the information as well. So once you're done, you like all the information, you want to present a quote to a family, or you just want to keep it for your sake and just save it, just come up here to the print button in the top right-hand corner, and you can actually print out this information, and it comes in a very nice, presentable quotation sort of layout, okay? Now, you can change it from portrait to landscape and play around with the settings. We would recommend just removing these headers and footers so it doesn't look like it's coming off a web page, okay? See all that stuff at the top there. Just remove it by clicking that, okay? That makes it nice and neat. And also probably recommend just customizing the margins. You don't need 100%, maybe 70 might be better. Just work out what sort of percentage works for you to try and get that either on 1 or 2 nice pages. I think if I do it on landscape, I should be able to. What nicer on a different computer? Sorry. Because A5. Come on, mate. There we go. I was wondering what was wrong. I knew there was something that was fishy. So you can basically see how you can get that all on one page. You've got all your center information at the top, your phone numbers, emails, and all that. So the parent can clearly contact you if they want to go ahead with that quote. If it's a new family, you can also then save that as a PDF or print that off if you have a printer attached. Okay, so there's many different things you can do with that. And like I said before, you can have one instance and save that. And then, for example, at the 12-hour, like let's say, for example, so let's remember these numbers, okay? Let's see, is it all 929, 120, 120? Okay, so the family will have to pay 570 gap, okay? Because essentially that's what the family really cares about, is how much do I have to pay at the end of the day. So if they were sticking to 11-hour sessions, which is, let's say, the standard session everyone else is stuck to, that will pay $611. So you can clearly see how reducing your sessions to 10 or 9 or whatever the case may be can actually help the family out, okay? So, play around with all the information that you need, and you can clearly see the difference in the numbers, I guess, whether it's the CCS or the gap or whatever the case may be, even the amount of hours that they're going to be using, okay? It does that all for you, so no need to manually calculate things, all right? So, yeah, I think that's basically all I wanted to go through with you guys today. Just wanted to cover all the bond stuff in the CCS calculator. Does anyone have any questions or anything they're unclear on or anything like that? Feel free to ask. Yeah, I've basically gone through. Yep, I'm all good with my notes. So I'll leave the floor to you guys now. It's your time. Ask me anything you would like. If anyone has any questions on, you know, on what we just talked about, or if you guys want to provide some feedback, just add it in the chat box, and I'll be able to help answer it. Let me just check I didn't miss anything. I don't think I did. I feel like all the questions are up to date. If I miss your question, just retype it and I'll get back to it as well. All good. No worries at all. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, like I said, happy to stay back for questions. I always thought this was going to be a bit of an easier, like sort of easier to digest kind of tutorial. So I didn't really expect it to, you know, go too long or, you know, have any of that sort of stuff. But yeah, let me know if anyone has any questions, anything's unclear. Like I said, like we always say, so there's no stupid questions. So ask away. If it doesn't make sense to you, you may as well just ask, because then that's what we're here for. But yeah, if everyone's happy with the tutorial, like I said, we'll post it up online and you'll be able to digest that information at any time. Okay, so I'll stick around for another few minutes. For everyone that, you know, doesn't have any questions or whatever, thank you so much for joining. I hope the training's been, you know, valuable and you've learned something today. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. It doesn't really seem like anyone has any questions. So yeah, let's wrap it up there, guys. If there was a question that you were trying to type out and we didn't get to, just send it to our support inbox at support@owner.com.au. But yeah, get in touch, guys. If you ever need any help with anything, we're always happy to help you guys. So stay in touch and we can get any questions you guys have resolved. Okay, so awesome. Thank you. And I think it was Linda. Yeah, feel free, Linda, to put that in the as a feature request, and we'll see what we can do about predetermined fees. Okay. Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I hope you all have a fantastic week and also a fantastic weekend. And we'll see you guys in our next week's trainings. Have a good day and bye from everyone here at Owner. See you.